Good noon. Good
Good
afternoon.
noon. I like that.
Tracy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Wulwyn. How are you?
I am fine. I always say fine. I'm well. I'm
I'm
excellent.
well. I'm good. I got my
I'm good.
bumblebee colors on today, so I'm all.
There you go. I got my jeans African, cloth on, and I'll tell you a story about this.
Yeah, please.
But
We like stories here. Stories are
but
good.
team, truly, we welcome you to this beautiful, beautiful day, the 21st of June, and welcome to our EP number 10. We're growing, Tracy. We're
We're
growing.
growing. We're growing in some way, right?
I'm telling you. I'm
The
telling
numbers.
you.
And I got a birthday coming up, so I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start calling it that. Not I'm aging, but I'm growing.
Hey, we're
I
growing.
like
We're
that.
Ooh, what's on your plate this noon day?
This noonday, well, I just skirted back in from meeting a connection this morning for coffee, and it was really funny because I'm driving back and
Uh-huh.
I get a call from my daughter. She's like, "Mom," like, what? So she obviously she's off for the summer, and you know how we always make the jokes about the cleaning crew and stuff. Well, I just
Correct.
so happened to prepare for them,
Uh-huh.
thinking, oh, they're not coming until after I get home. So like, but let me just get all the prep for them because we clean for the cleaners, right?
Correct.
That's what we all do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. We got to put things away, whatever. So thankfully I did that because apparently they came in. My daughter and I didn't leave a note for my daughter because I'm like, she'll still be asleep. I'll get home. I'll wake her up. There'll be plenty of time, all that.
Uh-huh.
Well, no, they decided to come early, apparently. So she's asleep in her bed. She's like, 3 people are in my bedroom, like waking me up to clean. And she's like, what's going on?
Mom.
I'm being abducted. Yeah, no, Mom, why did you? I was like, I did not know. So it was pretty
It
funny.
sounds just like them.
Yeah, she's like, I'm in my pajamas sitting out the front porch waiting for.
Oh, wow.
So
That's a funny
live and
story.
learn. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Anyway, so
funny
we've
one.
had some excitement around here already today. What about
Yeah.
you? Well, like I want to hear the story about the
Oh my
shirt.
goodness. So it's something like a tunic, right?
How say
So
that?
it drops down to my knees. But
You would
it's
get up and
I
give us
mean, it can it so it's
like come on, do your modeling act, Wulwyn.
it's da, da, da,
Oh, look at
da,
you.
and it
You
turns,
got it.
so it's, you know, free here,
Yeah,
so you can
perfect
wear
for
it
the
with
summer.
anything. If I take this off, it's what's under the shirt, right? And so it's more of a, I don't know what I would call it. It keeps
Is it
me
called like a
warm.
kaftan or
It's
like
it's similar to it, right?
yeah.
But so it's more of an African cloth, but what and really intricate and soft, really, really soft to the touch.
Mhm.
But this was given to my uncle by my granddad in 1960 when
Aw.
he was leaving Liberia to come to the States, and my granddad gave it to him as a gift. Go and show your African wear. So I go to Florida roughly about 2 years ago, and I'm sitting. We're visiting him, and he says, "Hey, I have something for you, Owen." So I go, "Okay," and I'm thinking, "Well, let me see what this is." And he comes and he gifts this and say, "Hey, you can have this." I'm like, "Oh, yes, yes." And he says, "You know the story behind it?" I'm like, "No." What's the story behind this? He says, "Well, in 1960, when I was leaving Liberia, granddad," he says, "Dad, his dad, granddad gave it to me to give, and now I'm giving it to you because I really don't wear it anymore." And my grandfather and I mean, I am so I respect my dad. I respect my grandfather, but my grandfather is such a was such an intricate. I think we talked about it. Teaching me how to do public speaking and speaking properly, just all those different things. Because dad's at work, granddad comes and stays for a while, so grandparents truly spend time doing certain things that the parents overlook. So parents say, "I'm going to feed you. I'm going to make sure you go to school, etc." Grandparents come in with, "You know what? I know this is they teach you wisdom." Let me just say that they are wise, and they just pour that into you. So for this to come to me, I was floored. My wife was looking at me like, so that's the
Mhm.
story of this, and I'm gonna keep it, and I'm gonna go and get a couple more similar to this because it's such a statement. So
Yeah.
that's the story behind it.
I love it. And someday you might pass them on to your grandkids.
That's you see, that's oh my goodness. Yes. 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 They didn't even think forward like that. I was thinking I was gonna put it in the grave with me.
Well, you can do that too.
Nah, no, no, no.
You can take it with you if you want to. That
Uh-uh.
absolutely was gifted to you by all means.
Nah, no, I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it. I think that's what we do here on Eavesdrop. We give. So I must uh continue in that vein, to because nothing we have here is ours, right? We're stewards.
We're
That
borrowing it.
that beautiful brain you have, the brain that I have, this big head that I have, it's ah,
I always tell people
it's a
that with my
gift.
big forehead, like, so
Eh,
I've got this really high that's why I always have had bangs because it cuts off my big forehead, and I'm like, "But that's because I have all this brain I had to have room for, right?"
just
Like,
go in there, in my big ears.
I know, I
Hey,
have them too. All the
yeah.
better to hear you with. Like, I've got
There you
really
go.
big
There you
ears,
go.
actually.
Girl, shoot, girl. I don't think you can
I
make
bet
me.
next time
I
we're
mean,
well, you and I haven't met in person to start with, so but we'll have to, like, do a little measurement on our ears and see who has the bigger ears.
self-deprecating. That's the best way to do it, right? I mean,
I love it.
it's who we are. You
That's
can't
right.
eavesdroppers. You can't run away from who you are. So you better embrace it.
I mean, you can. Like, I spent so much of my earlier years doing that, like, comparing
Mm,
myself to other people and I think we all go through that period of
we
time.
do.
I mean, if you don't, then God bless you, how you're able to like come out of the
I
womb
know.
so sure about yourself. But it is such wasted time and you're the only one that's miserable, right? Like
Yes.
nobody else around you really cares at the end of the day. And if they do and they care in a way where they don't think you're good enough, then they're not people to be in your lives anyway. So it's like it's just a complete waste of time,
Mm,
where
mm,
you could be spending it again. I think that's why I spend so much time with clients, helping them define their innate gifts
Yeah.
and how that plays out in the world, what they want to build with that, because I just know how inherently and fundamentally important that is.
Oh my
We
goodness.
waste a lot of time, trying to be what others want us to be or what we think others want us to be,
Yeah.
instead of just really cultivating what we've been given.
I remember about 3 or 4 years ago, I met I met this individual and I wanted him to do a couple of videos for me. Is this muffled in a way? Are you hearing double? Oh no, you're
I'm not
good?
hearing double.
Good, good.
No.
All right. So I go to him in Durham and he's this big time uh videographer doing big things. Saw him at a program where he was a guest speaker. So I got some time on his calendar and I'm sitting in his office, cameras, lights, everything. Like, man, I want to find out what it costs to do a couple of videos for me. And he says, I'm not gonna take your money. I'm like, what? He says, I'm not gonna take your money. Go and turn your phone camera on. Turn it on you and do your videos. I'm like, really? He just passed out of my office. And he talked to me for a while and just to get out of my office. And I left. And the reason why I didn't want to get on camera was, you see, at I think age 9 or 10, my brother took the rake and was rolling it, right? Just holding the handles and just playing with it. And he didn't see me coming from behind. He was sitting on the porch, on the banister. And I just run in and turn into it as the teeth were, and just, so I was conscious of it. I was like, what are my teeth? My head, my ears. I don't want people to see. But and I took the first one, turned it on, like, hi, I'm Wulwyn, and just want to let you know. And then the second and the third. And by the fourth, I wasn't looking at me. I was looking at what I was gifted to do, was to speak out what's in me. And when I forgot about me and did who I was from the inside, so you was talking about the innate aspects of what we're here for. When I started to work on that, do you know I didn't even care about ears. I didn't care. I mean, I know I put a little bit lip on it, put some lotion on, not coming here rough, but hey, it's not about, yes, let your presence, because I don't want to drink clean water out of a dirty bottle. You don't want to come and let me start speaking what is in my gut and I'm not presentable. Just saying, you have to trust in what's there and go out and give it. And really, the people who are supposed to get it, they're gonna get it.
And they will. And I think, I've been reminded at so many turns in the last couple of weeks, just how we're the ones that stop ourselves
Mm.
from
Wow.
not only what we want, but what we're actually here for, what we were designed for, right? We're the ones we're like, oh, but it's because I don't have this, or I don't have that, or this hasn't arrived yet, or this is missing in my life, or whatever, is the reasons. And none of that is. None of that's the reason for why we're not where we want to be or who we want to be or whatever it is. We are.
Wow.
There is not a single thing on this planet that's holding us back except for ourselves.
Wow.
Right?
Sister, can you open up on that? I think let's run with that. I don't know. I have a feeling, this will be about removing hindrances and roadblocks. And those hindrances and roadblocks aren't external, even though they exist. But I believe when we train ourselves, when we run this race and focus on our minds first and become strong. And what I mean by strong is not, you're not getting to the point where you see things in your mind can remove it. No, where you trust yourself and you can even be scared in strength.
Well, you need to be.
Yeah.
You need to be. I mean, I'm learning, and I told you all last time that I'm doing my training to become a business constellations facilitator, and it's been amazing because that's exactly what it is to learn to be a facilitator. Is you have to trust
Mm-hmm.
in what you're picking up, right, in the work. And I mean, there's no other way to get it. Like, because that's inherently what the work is trusting in what you're picking up, and you have to trust in yourself.
Yes.
And so all of the things that, as the training's going on, all the things that are in the way of people trusting themselves start coming up. And so you're like looking in the mirror at all these things that are your own hindrances, where you step back instead of stepping forward. And then what happens, what's lost because of that? Not to say anything ever can go bad, in a terrible way, but it's like, somebody's not possibly going to get that nugget that they came for. They'll get something, but if you could deliver the nugget, I mean, and it's not even about like, oh, look, I'm here delivering it. It's literally about you playing your role. Because I think that about, any situation is like, if we're being called up to play our role and we play it, then everybody's going to get what they need.
Ooh.
If everybody's playing their role in the way they were designed to play it, everybody's going to get what they need. If somebody isn't, then it's like the domino effect. It throws everything off.
Yeah.
And you'll get something. We always do. But will everybody get what they need? Most likely not. And so it's just that piece of saying, it's not about what other people, and that's the other piece to it. And I know I just got a text actually right before I went on from a client, and she's in the midst of trying to figure a few things out, in the workplace. And she says, I just need to bring it all forward, because otherwise I'll feel like I failed. And I'm like, well, so let me ask the differentiating question here. Bringing it all forward, is that you showing up fully as who you're designed to be? Because then I would agree. Or is that like doing everything that's being expected of you? Because part of it was, I need to hit these benchmarks, even though they're not reasonable.
Realistic, yes.
And I'm like, okay, so if they're not reasonable, why? My question here is why? Well, because I don't want to look like I failed. To whom? Because there's a difference between what people think and what you know. And I think that's a big, what do people think based on, what's the difference between what people think about you and what you know about you? Spend more time focusing on what you know, because people will think whatever they think, right? And we don't have control over that, but we do have control over how much we show up within our design, in the way we, in the skills and gifts we have, in our intentions and our integrity and all the things, our values and our purpose. If we're aligned in those ways to ourselves, then it really doesn't matter what people think, because we're always going to be delivering what we're there and designed to deliver. So it's, this is where I think there's starting to be this shift where people are like, hey, like the whole ear and head, and some people may come up and go, good Lord, yes, they've got some big ears. What the heck? Get some surgery, people. I don't really care what you think. Like, yes, you're right. I'll agree. Yeah, I do. I have some big ears.
Yeah.
Great. We agree.
And what does that remove from me in my holding space?
In my ability to be who I was designed to be, and who I came here to be, and who I want to be. It actually, I believe it's like, if you look in nature, everything is designed for what it does. Always in nature. If I have big ears, what does that mean?
And once we so you imagine the worms say they want to be ants, and the ants want to be worms, and the butterfly wants to be something different. How and the bees say, you know what, I'm tired buzzing from this tree, taking this to that other place. I want to be a bird. The entire ecosystem is going to just go.
Yep.
And if we, what you were saying, playing your role, as soon as you said it, I just got pop in my mind, where playing sports on a team, and I believe our lives here, we're on a team. Every one of us, we're in a team of humans. And I believe our lives here, we're on a team. Every one of us, we're in a team of humans. And I believe our lives here, we're on a team. Every one of us, we're in a team of humans. And I believe our lives here, we're on a team. Every one of us, we're in a team of humans. And I believe our lives here, we're on a team. Every one of us, we're in a team of humans.
Mhm.
And when John wants to become a dictator, John then gets away from being playing his role now, and he's about to play another role. And what does it do? It disrupts the entire ecosystem in that area, in that region,
Yeah.
within corporate individuals who haven't who perceive that they have the paper, the diploma, the certificates to get in a particular role. And there's this person who's been in a role for quite a while, or who's been in a company for quite a while. They are the ones who were supposed to be in there, and then the certificated person jumps there. What happens? There's a ripple effect. But then the bosses say something's going wrong. Yeah, something did go wrong. You didn't put the right person who was supposed to be in that role, right? And we are ourselves, and I'll punt to you right after this. In this game of life, we have to also understand the role of others so that
Mhm.
people do not mistaken their roles in our lives. Because when they're mistaken that, then they turn us out like somebody saying, Wulwyn, big head, you're not supposed to be in front of a camera. Like, not. That's what
Yeah,
you believe. That's not what I know, right?
right.
So similar to, just everything around trusting who we are, trusting why we're here. And I believe it comes from a lot of me time, a lot of
Mhm.
introspection, a lot of individuals, coaches, the innate coach. It's me sitting down with somebody and uncovering what is it, uncovering their greatness. So playing your role, I think we don't care what people think.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about playing a role on a team, because I mean that reminds me. So that I met with a guy this morning that I talked to a couple times. It was the first time we met in person,
Hmm.
and we talked about this concept of fractionals, right? So for those people who may not know, in the business world, people who help entrepreneurs in functional ways that typically you would see in a corporate setting.
Yeah.
So you see in-house in a corporate setting. So for example, a big corporation would have an in-house CFO, an in-house CRO, an in-house, even coaches,
Hmm.
in-house. Everybody's in-house, and so these teams are designed to work together, in-house. Well, most companies may not, especially companies
Board.
starting out, they
Yep.
don't have the funds to pay full-time salaries and benefits and all that for all these people in-house. So they hire fractionals. And a lot of times fractionals are people who were in-house in that position at some
Yep.
point,
Hmm.
or a high level C-suite, and they've had that experience and that exposure, and now they're paying it forward in the sense of being a consultant, but bringing all their expertise. It's like you wouldn't be able to hire afford them, right,
Yep.
in the corporate setting, but as a fractional consultant, they can come in for a short period of time, get certain things up and running, and then ideally, if once you are at that place where you can afford to bring somebody in, or they're just there for the projects and the needs that you have, you can keep a fractional for as long as you need them. So we were talking about the fractional world, and really we don't even like the word fractional, because what it connotates is separate,
Hmm.
siloed. And this is oftentimes
Yep.
what happens, and I see what happens when I go into working with entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
is trying to get them in their lane and out of doing all the stuff, bringing in individual people who they need, but that they're just, that they can also work together, right? Because if I ever come in and people like, oh yeah, I have a CFO, and I have a bookkeeper, and I have, but these people don't really talk to each other. I'm like, what do you mean they don't talk to each other? Like, they need to be acting as a team, because
Hmm.
that's part of the problem. I mean, a lot of the issues that we see come up is because these fractionals are all operating separately.
Correct.
And so we were talking about this because he's in sales. This guy I was meeting with is in sales, and I said, that's one of the reasons I brought together this group of cross-functional
Mm.
fractionals who I've been
Yeah.
working with, because we want to build ourselves as a team. So not just to go in as an individual, me as a leadership coach and saying, okay, I mean, I don't usually go in anyway. I mean, I get introduced by some of these people.
Hmm.
Typically,
Hmm.
people don't just, find me somewhere. They usually are introduced to me.
Word of
But
mouth.
at any rate, and we're already operating as a team. We have this synergy. We have ways of talking back and forth with one another. We have not, NDAs so that we can do that, so that we can
Mhm.
actually share that information where it's necessary to help one another do what we were hired to do better, and to be a supportive network as a team, not just as an individual fractional doing what we were hired to do.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
think that team concept is coming up a lot. Like I'm talking about it a lot. I mean, at the beginning of this year, I'm like, I want to be on a
It
team.
was, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's great to operate and have your own business and work with your clients and stuff, but there was a calling that I'm like, I can serve my clients better if I'm a part of a team, because
Mhm.
I find myself half the time introducing all these people anyway.
Yes.
Why can't we learn more than just what we typically do when we refer? We know enough to refer each other, but let's take it that next notch up
Yeah.
and learn
Yeah.
how to really work together.
Mm.
The benefit too is we're a chosen team. In corporate, you
Gotcha.
don't always get to choose who you're on the team with.
Gotcha. God, there you go. You
Okay.
say that, and I think about when I work with clients on creating their business models or remodeling what their business is, and there are all these aspects of sales and marketing and customer service, word of mouth programs, understanding the value proposition, et cetera, and then operating within those spaces for the key activities in order for them to perform, to give the service or product to this customer. So when I can see this from a 50,000-foot view and say, here are the way they're supposed to work, it is so hard to give it to the client and say, okay, now go and execute it, because they don't know how to execute it.
That's it.
This is where I go, okay, I know this, and just what you're saying, I know this fractional HR person who can come in here and fix your HR because I see there are gaps in there. Oh, I know there's a fractional financial person, and I'm going through that process right now. And we were at a graduation party this weekend, and I was speaking to this lady. I mean, really high in IT, really knows her thing, and she's retired. And I go, "What are you doing now?" And she goes, "Well, I'm looking for something to do, just to shoot the breeze a bit." And I'm go, "What do you think about being a fractional IT?" And strange that you would come and say this today when it just occurred on Saturday in this conversation. Building a team around, I think building a team around everything is important,
Yep.
because and I would go on record to say I want a team of women. I
You know how
swear I
many
don't.
people I've heard, actually men specifically, women too, but men who I've heard just in the last this year, really
Uh-huh.
saying the exact same thing.
On women.
The women in leadership. I want women on my team. I want, women in leadership do it differently. And there's been a lot around that. I mean, I've even seen it in um my facilitation training,
Mhm.
because it's being the person training us is a man, highly experienced. He's been doing this work for many, many years. And there was one particular breakout room we were working on, doing some, like, basically applying what we were learning,
Mhm.
in with each other, practicing. And he came in to kind of, you know, watch, monitor a little bit to see how it was going. And so he came in for just a blip at the very end. So what he saw, what he observed,
Mhm.
was a snapshot.
Okay.
What we had experienced as this team of women, because I was kind of thrown into the mix because I was the odd number. It was
Okay.
everybody else in the breakout rooms were two, and then I was thrown in this group as a third. And so I'm like, well, let me just, you guys already got started because I just got put in here. Let me just observe.
Mhm.
And then if I can add anything, is that okay? They're like, oh yeah, that's great. Very collaborative, because that's how
Yeah.
women typically are, right? Naturally, very collaborative. So I'm observing, and then in the end, it ended up this one woman who was kind of playing the role of the client, and the facilitator was practicing being a facilitator.
Mhm.
Um, the woman who was playing client got all the airtime, right? And the facilitator didn't get to swap roles. But in that
Gotcha.
final 5 minutes, I
It's
said, "Well,
what.
may I share something I observed?" And I shared my observance, and the woman who was the facilitator was like, "Oh, I feel like I just had my own constellation.
Wow.
Like you just pointed out some things that like I don't even need to flip roles now. Like I got what I needed. Like I
Mm.
in that because I was observing her as she was doing the facilitating, and then to be able to kind of share that piece. Well, at the end, he came in and he's observing, and the woman who was the facilitator who said, "Oh wow, I just got my own constellation in 5 minutes."
Mm-hmm.
He said something, and it seemed to all three of us so unusual. He said he all of a sudden kind of came in, and it felt hard, and about leadership. Well, your leadership, I mean, think about what does that say about your leadership and being a strong leader and stepping up and speaking for, and the three of us are kind of like,
Mm.
we didn't feel that she wasn't being a leader. But
Wow.
in that snapshot, he observed in his perception this concept of what leadership looks like
Yes.
traditionally. And yet our experience with her was that and that's why it was so great that she got what she needed, because she was a quiet leader. She was a more observant, more stand back, but then, she just had a different way. And he was essentially calling her out for
Mm-hmm.
something that wasn't a problem. Because again, if you
Wow.
think about leadership, it's that leader in that group. And we were a group of three. And as the group of three, we loved her leadership. We were getting
Mm.
a great deal out of her leadership. And I'm thinking, even in my piece where I only stepped in the very end, didn't say a single word up until the last 5 minutes, that could have been seen as not leading.
Correct.
What was Traci doing? She was just sitting saying nothing. But in actuality, I was listening, and then when I did have something to say, it was something that was helpful. So it was just, and so we stepped away from it, and we even asked him back in to have a separate conversation about it, and was able to share kind of like this was our observance. And so
Oh,
all of it was to say that we got to claim a different kind of leadership, because, we could have stepped back and gone, "Oh no, okay, I need to be more forceful. I need to be what, and we were like, "No, I'm good. Like we got this handled." Like I mean, not to say we don't have anything to learn, but what you're asking doesn't seem to fit here.
correct.
It to all three of us, it didn't resonate. And I think that that's a really key piece that I see time and time again. I mean, even as a coach to leaders, there's a very distinct difference between even women who are in male leadership roles. In
Mm-hmm.
other words, they think they have to be like that aggressive, assertive, dominant kind of leader. It's like I'm kind of like, how does that feel in your body? Does that feel natural? Because I mean, some women are more in that masculine
Some are.
energy, and
Some
then
are.
that's their design, and that's
Correct.
fine. But those who feel that they have to put that on in order to be taken seriously,
Yeah.
all the things. It's like, let's step back for a second, because we don't need. I just wrote a post about this actually recently,
Mm-hmm.
and then this rise in narcissism. And if we look at distorted masculine energy next to narcissism, they have a lot of
Yep.
characteristic
Yep.
similarities. So
Yep.
could it be that the reason we're not really becoming more narcissistic as society, as a world society, we're starting to really recognize that, let's just call it, our leadership maybe needs to become more balanced. It needs to
Yeah.
soften a little bit into a more balanced state, as opposed to feeling like in order to lead, we have to dominate and control.
You just summarized. I was speaking to my brother roughly about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we were talking about leadership, and he was part of this group where, because he's quiet, he
Mhm.
is a strategist. He really thinks, and then collaborative, put it on paper and execute. They're doing it for a program they're about to have. He leaves the country for a while. Uh, there's a boisterous individual who's forceful, really has the persona of the leader. Can come in a room and shake it up. And they tried to have a coup d'etat
When he was gone.
while he was gone. So he
Mm.
gets back. There's somebody in the group who says, no, it's not going to happen. Da da da. He comes back. He hears about it. Like, collaborative completed. They raised roughly $50,000 from it. At the end, they go, oh man, you were such a great leader. And then he said he thought, but you were the same one who was trying to take me out because I wasn't a great leader. That their idea of leadership was coming in the room and you do that, you do this, you do the other. And he said, it takes a while for people to understand my leadership style. It takes a while for people to understand leaders who aren't the traditional way of it takes a while for them to truly appreciate that. And I think it's time that I would say to those leaders who are the strategic, calm, in the midst of the storm. I'm going to say something that's going to be against what they do. Sometimes just get up and say, look, y'all, shut up. I understand what I'm doing. Pay attention to what I'm doing. It's strategic. Just wait. But that's not their style. Their style is
Yes, their style,
their
but
style
that's
is collaborative. But why does the world think a leader has to? Is that because that's what we've been shown for
yes,
years? Why does the leader have to be 6'5"? Why does the leader have to be
yeah.
chiseled? No, you can be a fat. I mean, I'm
You can
sorry.
be a fat, quiet leader. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So,
I'm sorry for saying that, but you could be. You don't have to be slim. Just you can be a overweight lover, heavy D. I mean, who can lead? But we always tend to go for the tall, the woman that's coiffed. Even though, yeah, as we said earlier, we must present ourselves properly. But there are a whole lot of leaders hiding. No, sorry to even say that. Not even hiding. There are a whole lot of leaders in the room, but because they're not screaming, see how I perceive them as hiding? No,
hmm.
they haven't been given. They aren't the ones who will take the bull by the horn and say, I got." It takes a transformative person to identify the leader in the room and say, "What do you think about this?" And because they love to be invited, they aren't the ones who would just jump up there and go, "I I can do it."
So what I find is that there's a lot of, I believe in situational leadership.
Okay.
Different situations call for different kinds of leadership. Let's put it that way. And I think that
Drop the mic. Drop the mic, Stacy. Tracy, drop it.
beyond just what this concept of quote unquote leadership is, because I mean I see this all the time. I mean, half the time when I'm reading stuff on leadership, I'm like, oh, like, oh God, we really have a long way to go. But it really, situational leadership, which is talked about a lot in the leadership world,
Mhm.
it's some situations call for, true leaders are actually more chameleons than they are just like, this is who I am all the time. Right? True
Speak,
leaders are
sister.
chameleons, right? So they can shift to the situation, but there are certain things that are always important to consider in leadership. And is that, and I think it's a lot of what people are calling for, but they're doing it kind of in a gross way.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is they do need to create stability, security. But the way I look at it is not, I'm not here to make it safe for you. I'm here to
Mm.
create structure. You
Mhm.
get to make it safe for you.
Mm.
You get to have the resilience. You get to use your voice if there's an issue. You get to be the creator of what you want to experience. It is not my job to make sure everybody's happy and safe. That is not a leader's job. So that's what I mean by
Mhm.
gross. A lot of people are, clamoring it. This leader's not making it safe for me. And this is,
Mm.
I'm like,
Mm.
get
Mm.
grip, because you get
Mm.
to, where are you playing a role in what you need,
Mm.
right? Stop pointing fingers and start looking at your own responsibility.
Yeah.
But the other piece about that is the structure is creating a container, right? We call it holding space in certain arenas. It's
Mhm.
how do you create such a way you're not controlling,
Mm-hmm.
but you're in control, right? You're in control of what's going on in the room. You're not controlling people, but you're in control. Leaders know how to do that. They know how to flip, and this is one of the things we're learning in the facilitation training is and you can trust, when you learn to trust your head, heart, and gut and integrating them and working together, right? You will know when certain things need to be, you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm going to need to stop you there. We need to get back on track. I wonderful ideas, and I do want to hear about them. So, we'll talk later about that. I'd love to send me an email, and we'll talk more about it. But right now, we need to get back on track. Those kinds of things, doing it in a kind way, not trying to, because when you learn the art of that, leadership is an art. Nobody's talking about that. It's like, yes, some people are born to be like innate. They have innate talents to be good artists.
Yes.
Some people have the innate artistry to be good leaders. But it doesn't change the fact that no matter who you are, whether you're naturally inclined to be a leader or whether you need to work a little bit more on yourself to do that, it's an art. It's an art form, right? And there are certain things that you need to learn in that artistic way of honing your skill sets and being able to create a space and run a space and hold a space, right? That constitutes that art form.
And I'm laughing because I'm just where are we? This is minute 40. I think this is minute 39 or 38. Let's remember minute 38, all right? About situation leadership. I think that's what we need to start doing, Traci, when we around it. Just remember, let's see, put 38 here. I'm gonna put 38 there. So for our boom bites. The when you were speaking prior to you even going further, and then when you went further, you explained it. I wrote down, when you said situation leadership, situational leadership is doing the right thing at the right time and not being one thing at all the time. I was writing, some leaders are so selfish that they don't want others to share the spotlight because they think that when we're in this when we're in this when we're in this room and I give Traci the floor, because I know Traci on this team, this is her forte. When I give Traci the floor and Traci breaks it down better than uh, so people will start looking and saying, let's move Wulwyn. It's Traci. Traci needs to be the person who's no. I think the leader understands that on this team, Traci is the best person. And I think that's what being in control and not controlling is. I somebody just last week or 2 weeks ago on a podcast, I'm watching this podcast, Traci, you would hate this. And I'm telling you,
I wasn't expecting that. I thought you were going to be like, "Oh, you would love this."
I know, and I intentionally did it that way. The moderators on the podcast has about 5 guys on there, and one of the guy was doing a thing is bringing his case against someone, and he starts to speak, and I can hear what's coming next. I can hear it because of his posture, of the way he's pronouncing his words, and then he goes in and degenerates a lady and says that someone slept with, and this is a political show, and he brings that kind of thing in, and he speaks for 5 minutes about how he went into the room and the man was doing something with a woman, choking her, or not even choking, getting close to her, and the woman is married. The moderator is on there, the leader, and he's listening. He lets the guy complete his 5 minute of speaking. Someone on the who's viewing sends a comment saying, "Why don't you shut him off?" Oh, I didn't know what he was saying. I wanted to understand what he was saying in order for me to decide what to do. So he turns to the guy now and says, "You have to stop." And I'm looking at it like, your leadership just showed that you really don't understand the situation. You don't
Mhm.
even understand the arena. You don't understand, because as soon as the gentleman who was speaking has started to talk and say that you because when Chris Rock was slapped by Will Smith, if Chris Rock had seen the cues,
I was
understood the
gonna
cues.
say, the rest of us watching, I'm like, he's going up to do something,
But
right?
when the guy, yes, thank you. When the guy goes and pivots like this, do you think he's pivoting to let you dance or come and hold your hand to go? "Dad"?
Well, he
Ain't it?
walked too directly up to him too.
No,
It's not
he
like he
walked.
was
Thank
waltzing
you.
across the stage. He went, right at him.
Directly to him. Like,
Mhm.
"Traci, you and I are standing and you have an intention to slap me. Traci, you send me cues. You send me cues. You would pivot in a way. Your hand would go in from this, it would go like that in order for it to get really, and then you would turn and start to give the motion. And that's enough time for me to
Back up.
back up or block or defend myself. So this guy in this situation didn't read, he read it, but he didn't understand it. So leaders, the art form is understanding when you see these things occurring, you can say, no, I'm not going to allow this. And you said it, you said the word, but you said it in passing. It wasn't, you didn't put a stamp to it. You said with grace, I think you said taking care of the situation with grace and not being overpowering to somebody who has done something, done a faux pas, done something in there that's not supposed to be done, and you're the leader who comes in and gracefully says, "No, you know what? We'll focus on that next at the end in the parking lot. For now, let's focus on this, and we move on." Why? The question now would be, for someone who doesn't know that, how to operate in that space, in those
Mhm.
situations.
Reading the room.
Should read in the room? Should they be leaders? Should they hold that space?
Well, the fact of the matter is they are, at least they hold the titles of them, right? And those are a lot of the people that I'm working with. I mean, I would say not. I mean, my clients tend not. I don't work with toxic people, first of
Mm,
all, so I'm not going to get the like super toxic ones.
correct.
But the people who want to refine their leadership, the art of their leadership,
Mm-hmm.
it's really there's a lot of things that's the fun part, right? There's a lot of places to discover and tools to use to start to shape and form and like I said, cultivate
Mm-hmm.
that art form. And that's why I like this work, is because there's everybody, again, even though situational leadership is a good thing, everybody, how they meet situations is different, because everybody's design is different,
Yes.
right? So getting to work with individual people, but based on, that's what I like, is to play mirror, based on what I see and hear, then I
Mm.
play that back
Mm-hmm.
and say, how could that have been in this situation? Or maybe the next time when maybe suggesting that a person they had an issue with, that they go back and call them in, and how will that crucial conversation go? And how are some ways that they can then practice in that conversation, how
Yeah.
to do it differently, and how to build that rapport in a different way, all of it is a part of growth and development. And there's all, I mean, I too, like, what do they say, that the average top athlete has anywhere between 7 and 12 coaches,
Mm.
or people
Mm.
helping them to
Yeah.
constantly refine their talents.
Yeah.
Like, there's never a time that we couldn't be helped by somebody coming in with that particular skill set to watch us and see how we are, in that
Mm.
space, and help guide us into improving that. It just depends on, most people they don't think in terms of improvement, they think in terms of critical care. So in other words, until things are
Mm.
bleeding out and falling apart, They don't think in terms of that, right? It's like
Yes.
at that point, it's just, stitch me back together and make the bleeding stop.
But I think that's what we talked about earlier about the narcissism, right? They don't want to come across as being weak. I don't need a coach. Or the person who's prideful. I don't need an egoic. I don't need a coach.
Well,
I'm good. I'm good.
I hate to say it, but we've all been a part. I mean, I say we very, very loosely. Our
Uh-huh.
cultures over time have developed this. So now with the changes we're seeing in even, generational perspectives on things, it is starting to steer things in a different direction. But for the longest time, that is what has been handed down generation after
Yep.
generation, is this is what a good leader looks like. This is what's expected. People don't know. They're just dumb. You need to control them and make them do what you want them to do. I mean, all of these perspectives
Men of the
on
proud.
on this, is, again, we do, because I'll tell you, after working with top leaders who ended up incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
unpacking these things and saying, where did the leadership go wrong? It's not
Mm-hmm.
just where your decisions got you where you are. Like,
Yeah.
were there times that you wanted to speak up against X in your corporation or Y or whatever, and you didn't? Or you were working in an environment where you wanted to be a different kind of leader. You
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to be held to those old standards that didn't feel comfortable to you, but you didn't. You just kept doing what was expected of you instead of doing what your inner compass and values and integrity told you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so a lot of it is, I mean, as much as older generations might be really upset now with younger generations that they're spewing all this stuff or pointing fingers and saying, you need to look at this and you need to look at that. I mean, I don't like it when it comes from a victim mentality.
Yeah.
You need to do this for me. I mean, when it starts getting entitled, no, that's not okay. That's just as toxic in a different way.
Mm.
But that they're pointing out, we want organizations to care about this planet. We want companies to make food, shelter, all these things without toxic stuff that's killing us and the planet. We want
Mm.
people to be more socially responsible in what they, create.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be a part of organizations that don't.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh my God, they don't get it. That's not how money's made. Well, maybe it needs to be,
Yeah.
because this planet is falling apart doing it the way we've been doing it. So maybe we need to listen to that, and maybe we need to take it seriously. And instead of pointing fingers and saying, you don't get it, you're too young, you don't understand what it takes, instead of doing that, maybe opening our old people ears and listening a little bit. But also on the other
Correct.
side, the younger generations, there's a lot to learn from those of us who have
Mm.
been walking this planet longer. But
Yep.
we've been doing it in a way that's not, what got us here is not going to get us there.
Yeah.
And
No.
we do need to consider it differently. But what if we came to the table? I mean, isn't that what diversity, equity, inclusion is about? Is all coming to the table and making room for one another's perspectives
Mm-hmm.
and hearing each other out and finding a solution that hits all the parts?
Yeah.
Isn't that what that's about? Everybody gets an equal say to put their perspectives on the table and be considered. And that's the integration piece. Typically, hierarchical, ways of doing things are not collaborative.
Mm.
We
Mm.
decide and you follow the
You follow.
rules.
Yes.
And that is just not the way the world is going. I mean, the younger generations want to be a part of it, but they want to be a part of something they believe in. They want to be a part of something that actually feels resonant when it comes to taking care of what's most important,
Yeah.
which for them is the planet, having good work-life balance,
Mm-hmm.
being able to have more than just a job that
Yep.
they spend their time doing,
Yep.
having good relationships in the environments that they're in,
Yeah.
not toxic bosses or toxic, leadership or culture, right? They want, and I don't think that's too much to ask.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. It's a
I
new
think the
way.
reason it's challenging is because we have not been doing it that way.
It's a new way.
And so riding that ship is going to take a little bit of time. And that's where the younger ones be more patient, and realizing instant
Yeah.
gratification may happen on Facebook, but it doesn't happen in reality.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah,
be patient. You got to be a part of the process. You can't just expect that as soon as you cry foul, that it's everybody else's responsibility to like follow suit and make it better for you.
yes, yes.
Right?
So to eavesdroppers, thank you for, I see people coming in and going. Thank you so much for being on here. We started talking about trusting ourselves, and then it moves over to leadership, and what traditional leadership looks like, and what transformative one and situational. I think one of the key things was women, 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 and I said it. I want I want women. If I ever, not if I ever, as I engage, so in Liberia, it's I'm looking for women who would lead or who would work with me, because there's just a different mindset. Uh, you were talking, and please don't be shy. Comment, let us know what you think, even in hashtag replay. um, we talked. The last thing was, calling for help and being not trusting it. But as you were talking, I understood. I heard for a while there seems to be peer pressure in leadership, and not in terms of within the company because they're the leader. I think it's when the other companies, other corporations, other businesses that are around you, that if I do it one way, and the crew's going to, the co of CEOs or individuals around there will look at me like I'm dumb, or like if I know I'm supposed to pay these people $15 or $30 an hour, $30 an hour, and in that area is 15, or I'm giving them work-life balance, giving them 3 weeks, and the other people in the other companies around there are doing 1 week. Don't I think the word leader for me is more of a pathfinder, someone who can go against the status quo, and lead in that status quo, and shepherd individuals into onto new grounds, right? Breaking ground. So you have you have that pressure. You have that pressure on them that really that hinders them, I believe.
Yeah, well, and where I see one of the biggest places that needs transformation and coaching is boards,
Mm,
because
mm.
that's where a lot of the pressure comes from, the board.
Yes, yes, yes.
And the unrealistic, because a lot of the people on the boards are still in the old school way of,
Yep.
and they're removed. They're completely removed in most cases,
And they have old information.
right? Yeah. We need more board coaches, like people who are executive coaches to
Mm,
boards, the executive board of
mm,
organizations,
yeah.
because they need some serious coaching. And I'm not calling out anybody in particular, but I just across the board, if you look at where the pressure is coming from, that even if a leader
It's
is
true.
inclined to say, okay, yes, I understand how some of these decisions and focusing on just the data and just the bottom line and all of
Mm,
this. I mean, what we're seeing right now is big companies liquidating. That's what's going on right now.
yep.
It When people are losing their jobs and everything's downscale, it's liquidation. What happens?
Yes.
Why does a company liquidate when it's
Mm,
not doing well?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's not always the numbers. When we're just looking at the bottom line and the numbers, that may look okay. What isn't going well are the
People.
people stuff.
Yeah.
And that's typically what's happening right now. So
Mm,
firing more people who decided to stay, is that a good way to handle your people problems?
mm,
But see, they're just looking at the numbers and they're not realizing that those numbers are being affected by the people. So
yeah.
then they double down and do more of the same, which is going to create more of the challenge and the problem. But I'll tell you, I mean, I just look at writing on the wall. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you can call it whatever you want. It's liquidation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
any company's liquidating, it's the Titanic. It's starting
Mm.
to go down, folks.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, it doesn't mean it can't go back up. It doesn't mean we can't right the ship. It doesn't mean, but it does mean we need to stop making the problem and sticking band-aids on it, making the problem the symptom the problem and sticking
Yeah.
band-aids on it. and thinking that we can just keep doubling down on the wrong decisions
Mm,
and actually get a right form of action out of it.
yeah. Yeah.
Right? We have to step back and we need to be back to what you said earlier. We need to be humble enough to say, either I'm in trouble, I need help, I need support. Who are the people who know maybe better than I? Where can I start to, get my ego out of the way and my pride out of the way?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it isn't about me. It's about the company. Do you know what made the Titanic go down? The ego of the captain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did it hit the iceberg to begin with?
Mm, mm, mm.
We're going to get there faster. We told people by this time, but we're going to get there faster. And I'm sure it wasn't just one person. It was probably a collective group of people who made that decision, but it was ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was ego, and it'll do it every time.
It will. It will. Traci, can you imagine an hour's almost out? Got about 2 more minutes, 1 more minute on here. I really appreciate the insight into the leadership, situational leadership, how to thing we have to ask. We need to put in there how to ask for help because the ego really does affect. And who does the ego affect? Who's in leadership roles around the world? Men. And men tick, I'm a man. So dad told me not to cry. So I'm not going to cry here. But I think I'm going to encapsulate this or summarize this whole show as get women in your businesses.
Well, and bring more of, men, I love working with men. Because men have the same capacity to bring collaborative, you said that about your family
brother.
member, we just need to be more balanced in our approach. That's
hard.
What it is.
I know it's hard. To train this, to give this old dog a new trick.
It's hard, but that's why people like me do what we do. Reach out for the support, because you know what? We're trained for that, but we desperately are passionate to do it too. Yeah. That's why we do this work, is because we want to see the ship turn. We want to see people in feeling good about their own leadership, not just good leaders in the right place.
I will close on this. This 10th EP on this 21st day of June. I remember in B school we had an argument. The argument was PPP, people, profit, or planet. And I said people first, planet second, and profit last. A bunch of my cohorts were like, no, profit first. You can't get profit without people. You can't get profit without the planet. So as you're doing your businesses, as you're engaging with people, understand people run this and not even AI. Trust me. So on this beautiful day, look, hey, Traci, I truly appreciate everything. And look, I forgot to cue in this, and I'm going to cue it now. There we go. Oh, Traci. So see you guys in 2 weeks. See you in 2 weeks. Traci, have a good one.
You too.
I got caught in this conversation and didn't do what I was supposed to be doing.